Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
G.I. Joe Critical Mass is a new board game released by Renegade Games based on the IP cartoon from the 1980s of G.I. Joe, the Real American Hero. They've taken the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid game and brought it into the G.I. Joe universe with some minor changes. Now, growing up, having watched G.I. Joe, it wasn't exactly my favorite show, but it was something that was in a regular cycle of shows that I would watch in this age group. It was a phenomenon at the time. The toys were everywhere, the TV show, the cartoon you could watch everywhere, and it was a huge hit. All these years later, we finally get the G.I. Joe game we've always been waiting on. Up to this point, it's been mass market garbage, and we did have the deck building game that came out by Renegade, and it is a very good deck building game. But now we have a game, but once again, we're borrowing from another game to get the G.I. Joe game. Now, usually I'd be down on that, but I really like the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid game. It's one of my sons and my favorite game. So getting the G.I. Joe game based on that system is a huge win for us. You get the very large miniatures, the components that look fantastic, and everything has been changed to look like G.I. Joe. Now, the systems are very, very similar, so much they can be combined with a few rule tweaks they can put in. So instead of having Zords, you're going to have vehicles, and that system works a little bit differently, but 90% of the bones are the same. But that isn't a take away from this game. This means all of the content you have Power Rangers, you could technically combine them and have your own crossover show. Now, I'm not a huge fan of that. I want my Power Rangers to stay Power Rangers. I want my G.I. Joes to stay G.I. Joe. And right now, this game does lack a little expansion content. You got the heavy vehicles, you got the one retro Snake Eyes, and you got the heavy firepower expansion, and that's it. But if we've watched the Power Rangers game grow, we know there's going to be more content for this game coming. And boy, are we waiting on it, because this game needs variety. This game needs more stuff, but I'm sure that it's coming. So let's talk about just the core game experience, what you're going to get in here. You're going to get a very tight, skirmish fighting game. It's going to have a lot to do with hand management, and every character in the game does play completely differently. It's going to give you a different breakdown, it's going to give you different dice, and it's going to give you different ways to kind of manipulate that deck, and that is fantastic. But you are going to roll dice, and while those dice can be mitigated at times through card play, you are going to be relying on those dice sometimes, and that's going to turn some people off, and some people are going to be right at home with it. I think that if you're entering into this game universe, that you're going to be pretty solid with that experience, and we like it a lot. It's clean, it's quick, and it gets through combat. Now, there are some downsides to this game. The fact that if you're not in the fight and two other people are fighting, you're just kind of sitting there doing nothing. It's a cooperative game, but I think that's okay because you can still talk about the decisions and discuss these kind of things if you want to. Although I feel like the game maybe plays best with 2, but you can play all the way up to 4 if you choose to. This game is lacking in content, but like I said, if you're into this, you probably buy more and more bad guys and vehicles and bosses and villains to fight and heroes to play with. And that's kind of the nature of the beast of these kind of dungeon games. Although this isn't a dungeon crawler game by any means. So what do we get here? We get the premium, at this point in time, G.I. Joe game. If you're a fan of G.I. Joe and you're okay with a heavier rule set, I think that this is going to go now. This is not of a Telesarta game. This is more of, it's for mass market. This is going to be a heavier game. But for those of you that have played, any of these games, or if you played Power Rangers, you're going to be able to come over very quickly. It's not too complicated, but there are a lot of rules and there are a lot of cards that will change those rules and move from that. So this is one of our favorite ones. I feel like I have been here before because I have. But I do like this theme better than Power Rangers, even though I've collected everything for Power Rangers. I plan on collecting everything for G.I. Joe. I do like this theme IP better, and it's been a win for us. Keeper for us. Here is G.I. Joe Mission Critical, and I have to tell you, this is a gigantic box, and likely larger than it needs to be, but probably because there's a whole bunch of content coming out. And while this will need a custom insert to hold it all, it's intended likely to hold all of this information. So you're going to get some books here, which we'll take a look at in a few minutes. These are going to be your boards. So just like if you play Power Rangers, this will be the center. This will make up for it. These are modular. They have powers on the back if you want to play a little bit harder, sometimes easier mode. This one, you're going to get some boards with it with Power Rangers does not come with. Put your vehicles and your tracks on here. You can see the G.I. Joe. And they're big together, but they're small enough where you can move them around the board if you want to. This one's really cool. We're going to be playing the villain cards and the henchman cards here. Power Rangers did not have something like this, so this is kind of appreciated just so you can have it and have some artwork on it. I like that quite a bit. Then you're going to get a bunch of your miniatures in here. We will take a look at these. So the blue ones are going to be your standard foot soldier type people. These are going to be pretty good. You'll be using these a lot as you go through this core set. And then this will be the other kind of foot soldier that you'll have throughout. You can kind of see they're different colors and different sculpts, and they represent different characters when they're out on the board. We'll set those aside. So then you're going to have some of your bad guys here. Here you're going to have the Cobra Commander that you'll be able to utilize. You can kind of see. Now these miniatures are larger than they normally are. And this will be, the white ones will be the bad guys. And the green ones will become our heroes, or our Joes, as you know them as. As you see, these miniatures are bigger, a little bit more detailed, etc. than what you're going to get. You get some tokens. The red ones will be damage, and these will be lightnings. I always upgrade these in my sets. These are kind of nice little cardboard. You're going to get some green dice here. These will be the G.I. Joe dice that come with it. They're big and chunky. I have an extra set of red, white, and blues that will be there. Now, you have any number of other assorted tokens. If you play Power Rangers, most of these will be fairly familiar, but you do have those. And you'll see how some of these are very unique to G.I. Joe themselves. You will get a set of vehicles, which will be a new mechanic. It's one of the Wolverine, the Vamp, the Ram. Got a little motorcycle you can ride. Some missile system, Flax, and a Mobat. And these will give you like one-time powers you can utilize throughout the game. Now, as for the characters, you're going to see Scarlet here. Each one's going to come with a unique power. You're going to have Stalker, Duke, Snake Eyes, CoverGirl, and Scarlet. The one that was kind of missing was Flint. I haven't seen him in the set. Additionally, a couple of these large vehicle tokens that you'll be able to utilize during the game. On this side, we're going to see our villain cards. You're going to have Cobra Commander, Copperhead, Major Blood, Baroness, Crimson Guard. These will be your henchmen. And you have the Cobra Trooper. And then finally, you have Dr. Mindbender on the S. This card's a little thin. You might want to sleeve these a little bit. You can see it's really easy to see with the health and the power they do at the bottom. You'll be shuffling up, especially the henchmen, quite a bit. So you can see really cool artwork on these. But you'll probably want to sleeve these if you plan on playing this game a ton. Now, this deck of cards, you're going to get some lieutenants and stuff so you can kind of randomize who you'll be playing against. You're going to have some of these cards that will kind of tell you where people will go and when they will come out. They just utilize the icon system. And then finally, you're going to have your cards for our heroes. And each hero is going to have their own unique set of cards with different powers and different abilities. Each one of these are intended to play a little bit different. And you can see sometimes they do repeat the artwork because it's the same exact card. That's the only time you're going to see it. Otherwise, each of the cards have their own artwork that are printed on here that is unique to that character and will be highlighting that character. But sometimes in the background, you'll see bad guys and different people on here. Once again, if you're playing this a lot, I'd recommend sleeving these cards. Overall, the components are really good. Miniatures are bigger than normal. It matches up fairly well with the Power Rangers set if you played that. The game is going to come with a quick start. So if you're just looking to play, you know how to play the Power Rangers game, and you're willing to just jump right in and start moving, this will have the rules on it and get you up and moving pretty quickly. This will be the rule book that you're going to have with the game. You'll start out with a picture of all the components, which is fantastic. I love when this is included. A double-page spread of setup. Very good. You got pictures with numbers and letters corresponding to everything. This would be a piece of cake. Then you're going to jump into how you win and how you lose, the round structure, and deployment. You got pictures, you got examples that are put here with easily lettered so you can see what order they go into, and a description of the battle. Now the game may look from this like it's much harder to play than it is. It's actually a fairly simple game. You come down into your hero turns and kind of how those work, and the enemy turns here, and you have your vehicle cards. And this is new, so everything else is going to play a lot like Power Rangers if you played that. This vehicle system is going to be very, very different. You're going to have the pit. A few changes will be made with the different player counts. And then you have your location effects if you're going to play on the advanced rules. And there's rules here to cross over if you want to play with the Power Rangers set at all. And then you're going to have a little picture here with some credits. On the back, you'll have a reference menu of some of the icons, gameplay, what to do if the locations are panicked, etc. Very good rule book. I already had played the Power Rangers, which the two games are very, very similar. So I had a leg up on it. But they utilize the same rule book, which I thought was fantastic, so 9 out of 10 for me. To start the game out, each player will choose one of the 5 available heroes. Now, there's a little bit of a rules change. I'm not going to explain all of the rules in the game, but if you're playing 1, 2, 3, or 4 players, so there'll always be one of the initial Joes out of the game. Each player will have a unique power that you can utilize based on the circumstances or what it will say. So Duke says once per battle, a hero of your choice may re-roll any number of dice during attack. So he's very, very helpful. You'll shuffle up your vehicle deck and you'll put out 3 available vehicles that will be utilized during the game. This is an entire rule change, and I'll come back to this, but this will be part of setup. At the start of the game, each location will get a random. You can set up however you choose. They kind of show you where it's going to go. So this will tell you that you will put out 2 of these in the location with the beaker. And you're going to do this, and now we're going to put out 3 where that rook or castle is located. They will go in New York City. And you'll do this 4 times, continuing to put these guys out. I had another castle there. He will come out. And then we will put 2 more in the castle. So when these get to a location, so this one has 5 on it already, it will actually panic, and you can put out a panic token on that location which says, hey, this one is full, and they will go counterclockwise to the next location. If you ever panic all 4 locations at the end of a turn, then you will lose the game. Now, you will win the game by going through this deck, and you will defeat whatever lieutenant. You will fight through 3 of these and a boss. When you defeat the boss, then you win the game. It's the same rules as Power Rangers. On your turn, you can do one of 3 things. You're going to have a number of actions depending on number of players. You can move to a location. You can battle, which I'll showcase how a battle works in just a moment. Or you can get cards from your discard pile and put them, called relaxing, and put them back into your deck. And that's going to be a way, kind of a resting thing that you'll be able to do as you're going through the game. You're going to have, based on the number of players, you have a certain number of actions you can do on a turn. One action you do is simply move to anywhere on the board. So let's say I started out here on Space Station Delta. I could just move over to the Cobra Temple. It does not have to be adjacent to me. I can move anywhere I want for 1 action. If I'm in a location and I want to spend action, I can perform a battle. I'll come back to combat in a minute, but just know that I can do a combat there if I want to. The third possible action is recover. So let's say this is my deck and this is my discard pile. What I can do when I want to recover is go through my discard pile and pick out a number of cards so I can have 6 shields. So 2, 4, 6. I could take these cards. I have 2, 4, 6 shields. Take it with my draw pile. thus healing myself. So if I run out of cards, I'm knocked out, and performing that as a recover action. And then the remaining cards would stay in my discard pile. When I do so, I also take one of the energy tokens, and I can have a maximum of 1 energy token. The only caveat to that is if I ever move back to the center, which you can tell there would be no battles there, I can take all of my cards in my discard pile, get my energy back, and shuffle them. And then that's a full heal, but it does require the action of staying there and having to spend another action to move out in order to battle. One of the new aspects of this game is that you will have these vehicle cards that are out that you're able to purchase as the game continues. As I defeat these foot soldiers or henchmen, they will be on this tracker right here. You can never have more than there are circles. Anytime during a battle, if I want to spin these guys, which at some point I'll need to, I can take them off here. I got 1, 2, 3, and I could buy a card spinning the cost. I couldn't buy the 4 or 5 because I only had 3, but during a battle or anytime I want, I could buy the missile system. Use this card after an enemy card is defeated by an attack, deal excess damage from that attack to a different enemy card. Once I utilize that, after the battle, a new card will come out and be available. So this system is a little bit different than the Zord system that you will see from the Power Rangers, and this is the main difference between the two games, so be aware that that is occurring. This little board is where combat is going to happen. So if you fight a character from the game, let's say it's a boss, he will come up here. Anything that's fast will always move over there, and then you'll have the guard that will be there. So if I put fast out there, these are already fast, they stay there, and this would bump down, and that would be set up like that. If you're fighting one of the henchmen, you will also put these down here, utilizing the same thing. If it's fast, like this one is, these would all bump down, and fast would become the first card in the row. What's important about fast, so if you're fighting something like this, the boss will always attack first. You'll attack through these cards, then you'll come down and attack these. They all work the same way, so I'm going to take the boss off and just show you how one of these battles will happen. So if I put 4 cards out, that's because there would be 4 people in my location. If there were only 3 foot soldiers in my location, I would only put 3 cards out. With the bosses, you always put 4, and there's a number that you have to beat. You have to be able to beat 6 to 8 cards depending on the number of players. Let me just show you how combat may work. So the Joes will always battle first, and when you go into the battle, you will always gain 1 energy per player that will go into the pool, plus any energy that you had. Now, when we're fighting these guys, like I said, the Joes always goes first unless there's a fast. So then what we would do, if there's a fast, we will go ahead and do that card first because they got the drop on us. Drain 1 energy, which we will do, and discard 1 vehicle from the power board. So one of the vehicles in the power board will be discarded. I just kind of turn this upside down to showcase that's already been utilized. Then what I can do, whatever cards I have in my hand, I can utilize these in battle. So the ones that say 0 are free to play. If it says 1, it costs me 1 energy in order to play it. Some will cost 3, and some have an X. It depends on what the card says. I can spend usually a variable number in order to do that. So let's say I got something like this. Let's see if I got an attack card. This one is free to play, so let's just say I want to play that one down. I will roll 2 of my Joe dice. And I have to choose before I roll who I'm going to have. If you look, this has 2 health, and these have 3 each. And these have a possibility of having a hit, a double hit, or a miss on them. And that's kind of what you'll have. So if I do 2 hits, then I could do 2 damage, depending on which one I attacked. If I attacked this guy, he would be killed. Or if I did 2 damage to him, I'd put 2 of my red damage markers on him, but he would still be alive with 1. Let's say I did 3 damage to this guy. Then I would be able to shoot him down, but I can't because this one has guard, which means I have to shoot this one before I attack this one. So I have 2 choices. I can attack this guy or this guy. Remember, this is before I roll the dice. So let's say I roll the dice, I get 3, and I attack this guy. I would flip him over to showcase that he's dead, but he's still going to get an activation. So that was my turn. Then this guy would go ahead and activate. So he would deal 1 damage to me, increase this damage by 1 for each foot soldier in this location. So then I would take my draw pile and I would turn it over, and it has 1 shield. But because he did 1 damage, so this is increased damage by 1 for each foot soldier in this location. So I know I have 2, and because 1 is dead, I have 2 foot soldiers. So I'm going to do 2 damage. So this has 1 shield, so I would discard this card into my discard pile and do another one. And because it's enough to beat it and have access, it would go on the bottom of my deck. Now, this one that didn't have enough on it, it would be discarded. But let's do this again where it says deal the 2 damage. I'd flip this over, 1. I'd flip this one over 1, and because it's equal, they both would be discarded. So that's kind of how that is going to work. And then this guy, he is activated. I would be able to play another card from my hand. I could choose which card I wanted to do, etc. Say I played this, and I did some damage. This guy would then activate, and the Joes always get 1 additional activation. Whoever I kill would go on the board, so I could buy vehicles with them, and that's kind of how that is going to go. In order for us to win, I have to defeat a boss and do a number of damage to it, or they need to panic all of the locations. The other little caveat is, at the beginning of the game, there's going to be a number of these energy tokens that will be placed in the command center. Every time a hero is knocked out, I have to spend one of these. Think of these about these as like a game, life, in a video game. Once I lose all my energy tokens that are there, then the entire team will lose the mission. And that's a quick overview of how you play G.I. Joe Mission Critical. Who should buy this game? Anyone that's a fan of G.I. Joe, this is the premium game for you to get. I do like the deck building game a lot. That is a fantastic game, but I feel like this, with the miniatures and the characters, this is the game to get. This is going to be the big favorite. Now, I would not buy this just for any G.I. Joe fan unless it's a collectible, because the rule set is a little heavier. So we need gamers in order to play this. If you're into cooperative games, you like skirmish games, you like fighting games, you like chucking some dice, you like hand management, this will all play into it. Now, do you need to be a fan of G.I. Joe to like this game? I'm going to say no, only because I really got into the Power Rangers game with my son, and to be honest, we haven't really watched that show. But we did learn a lot about the mythology by playing through the game. So take that with a grain of salt. For us, this is going to be a keeper.